The final thing I want to do is to test this part of the sessions helper, this current user, and in particular this branch, the branch that corresponds to a user that is visiting the site after having closed the browser. And so we can do something like this. I really like to do this. I'm just going to put raise. This is raising an exception inside this branch. You can see that the tests are still green, and in fact the whole test suite is green. This is a really nice way to show that this part of the code is not being tested. So now we want to write a test to get to red, something that actually hits this branch of the current user method. It's really hard to do this inside of an integration test to simulate closing the browser. It can be done, but it's incredibly cumbersome. By far the easiest way to do it is to test the sessions helper directly. So we want to actually write a test for this current user method. To do that, I want to make a sessions helper test file. So if we look here, we can look at test helpers. There is a directory for helpers, but there's nothing in it right now. So let's make one of those files. Let's open it up. We need to refresh it here. I could have just double-clicked on it. It was right here. To get started, we can copy over something. I just want to show you how you would do this if you didn't know offhand. Go to the sessions controller test. So we want something like this here. Let's paste this in. Instead of sessions controller test, I want sessions helper test. So sessions helper test. And then let's write the test, just a test for the current user. So what we want to do is hit this branch, and if we look at current user, the way to do that is to call current user when the session is nil, but when the user has been remembered. So we can do that like this. Let's pull a user out of the fixtures. And then let's remember that user. So that will define the cookie, that will define this cookie. Remember, we're calling remember here. So that sets the cookie, but the session inside of this sessions helper is nil. Remember, that session gets set if we log in, but we haven't logged in at all. This is just defining a raw user and remembering it by calling these sessions helper methods directly. Let's put in an assertion. Certainly it's the case that this user should be equal to the current user. So this is our call to current user right here. Just paste it in. The order here is actual expected, so we expect that the actual user to be equal to the current user. So if I save this, this should give me a failing test. Right, so what's happening here is it's coming into this branch. Session of user ID is nil, but this cookie has been set by remember of user, and then it's hitting this exception. So you can see, oops, actually there's something else. No, look, it says no method error, undefined method remember. So that's actually not what's happening. We can verify by removing this raise that in fact it's still red. And the reason is actually quite subtle. I didn't copy from my own book. In fact, copying from the controller test was wrong. It's actually action view test case. Where do we have that? Search in the project. Interesting. So we actually don't have it anywhere here. All right, well, this is why you have a Rails tutorial book. It tells you things like this. Let's restore the raise here, and then save this over here. All right, so this should be red, but now it should be red. Yes, because it's a runtime error. That's coming from this raise. So if we copy this or cut that out, now it should be green. The whole suite should be green. Great, so now it's actually hitting this branch. So if we do anything in here, if we copy or if we cut that out, it should go red. But it didn't. The test suite is still green. So this is a bug. We should definitely catch this. It's not quite as serious as it looks because we still need to have a valid user ID. And this is encrypted, but this is not good. Right now, we definitely should have to authenticate based on the remember token. So if we eliminate this, essentially this is now not using the remember token at all. So what we need to do is make a test that resets the user's remember token and then verifies that this current user returns nil. So let's leave this like this. We want to get to a red test to catch this. So now I'm going to reuse that @user. Or this user will become @user. And we want to remember that user. And let's change this to test current user returns user when session is nil. Returns the right user. Session is nil, and then, actually let me close this. It's the same thing, except instead of user, it's @user. So this should still be green. And now we want test current user returns nil when the remember digest is wrong. So this is assert nil current user. Although actually this isn't quite right. We need to change the user's digest. So what we want to do is get a mismatch so that this authenticated method returns false. So let's do that. We can do that like this, @user.update attributes, or update attribute, just one, right? Remember digest, and let's just use the digest. Could be anything, but let's use the right code. So we've just given it a digest that does not match the digest that corresponds to the token put into the database here, or put into the cookies. So this should be red. Good. And now when we restore this code, it should be green. Great. So now everything in this branch should be tested. Anything we change, if we eliminate this, something should fail. Oh, in fact, this is another omission. The user should be logged in. Oh, it should be here. It should be assert is logged in. There we go. Well, it's amazing the number of things that can go wrong, but I think we've got a green test suite now that tests pretty much every branch of that current user method. That's great.